There are somewhat similar realities in heaven as on earth. There is something of heaven on earth. Padre Pio's words. The entire cosmos is the work of fugitives from God, angels who dreamed of an independent heaven. Unfortunately, it did not work out as they dreamed. Evil was created. But as Padre Pio says, there is something of heaven on earth. Not much, but there is. Everything was modeled on the original heaven. Even imperfect material atoms are similar to heavenly atoms. We have heavenly bodies there, here, physical bodies. There, spiritual planets, here, physical. Souls are sexual. There is a love game there, flirting on a grand scale. People could even get bitter about it. Because this is the false record in people's conscience, since we have degraded. There is not only procreation there, and beyond that everything is. Sex better than sensual, unearthly. There you have the whole heaven at your disposal. And time also exists there, but not in the sense of transience, of a clock. Everything you want, what you desire, you achieve it, with the magic of love and the art of love. There are only substitutes left on earth. Aging and inevitable death, which shows how bad it is in these systems of incomplete heaven. So let us strive for the original. And he is there, but outside the cosmic heavens. And this is something you should already know if you want to finish the space basic. I once asked Padre Pio if there was gender in heaven. He replied, yes. It gave me a lot to think about. The dialectic of consciousness and free will is a mixture of creation, which quietly does what it wants according to impulses unlimited by anything. It suffocates in this or unleashes joy. Heaven depends on ourselves. If we pass through the physical worlds and beat our heads against the wall of suffering, our orgasms of happiness will be temporary and temporary. If we pursue the heaven of eternal pleasure, we will gain it 100%, as the spatial and palace consciousness desires. God is free, and does not forbid anyone anything. Full comfort of good or evil. We actually choose between the extremes of existence of being. We have every right to do so, as God does. The fullness of happiness and suffering. We choose for ourselves. God, you took delight. What will we choose after death? The ancient angels had the same spiritual conditions, and they chose what they wanted. Where are we? We are suffering a bit. Something is wrong here with faith and hope. Lack of love. Not that choice. Poverty, withdrawal, inability, laziness, lack of inspiration and hope, lack of desire to acquire spiritual and material goods, to acquire culture, can never be a good custom or a positive social phenomenon. Prosperity, as the name suggests, a good existence, is good. Material wealth, and certainly cultural and spiritual wealth, is a treasure in this world. A good existence causes happiness at the level of the body and soul. It spells a wide mental and emotional spectrum. Doing nothing useful, developmental, if only for own soul, a person actually wastes his time and life. For good progress must not be closed. So let's learn, let's educate our minds and hearts, because it may come in handy after death. But also here. So let's create schools for teaching such universal values of mind and heart, where education would be done not only in basic knowledge of the world, but also from the knowledge of dreams and desires, from the knowledge of a good heart, spirituality, kindness, love of a neighbor and respect for him. Today such schools are in short supply, so we have a serious slump, especially in the sphere of nobility, chivalry of heart and compassion. The problem is quite significant, because through lack of heart and spirituality, we are losing culture. And culture is the basis for ensuring that material progress does not threaten the peace and harmony of life in our world. I will do everything to ensure that my spiritual children are not too rich materially. The words of Padre Pio. Promoting knowledge of various scientific and religious views, defining the essence of the universe, is mediocre, and not necessarily good, let alone true. Yes, it makes it easier to form own opinion, an own personal conception of truth and happiness, but after all, heaven means something different to everyone, the words of Padre Pio, and the same is true of truth and feelings. No one can say they know the whole truth. Just as no one can say that my view of beauty is perfectly the same as yours. Imagining God is similarly difficult as imagination itself is an untamed living garden. Beauty is a wide range of feelings. And it does not mean that it is ossified and uniform. And beauty is also God, if one can say so. So to embrace God is impossible. Everyone sees his attributes from a different angle of feeling and construction of the imagination, the soul. For each soul, like the body, is a different and unique individual. And this is actually beautiful, because it is devoid of dogma and stubborn beliefs that only create unnecessary tension. However, the wide range of human experience gives us the opportunity to learn about the true relationship between spirit and matter. The pursuit of what path to follow is called reflective inquiry in finding transcendental facts testifying in favor of absolute truth. Every living human memory must ask the reason for its existence. If it does not do this, it is not intelligent. Instead, it deals with the norms of social life, and the interaction of people and things with each other. However, this is not enough to know happiness. The inquiry must be specific, concerning directly eternal existence. What good is evolution when the impetus for defining it is still unprofessional questions? From an early age, we instrumentally inquire about all sorts of problems with the omission, however, of the most important one, eternal existence. We are swarmed with questions, but it doesn't give much. There are a huge number of sources of answers, meanwhile sober answers, sensible ones, from the scope of the purpose of life are virtually non-existent. For happiness we need such answers, so that we are not frightened by the apparent end of the fairy tale of life in the cosmos, but open wider perspectives. Our knowledge is reduced solely to the study of the naturalistic idea, in which there is no mention of spiritual, eternal life. This conscious passivity of the entire system of knowledge is like a fuse for a revolutionary bomb that is already exploding. The cross-section of human knowledge is therefore not complete. Forgetting the most important thing, shows how unenlightened we really are by the highest standard of knowledge about man and life in general. By engaging in curiosity about life, a new vision unfolds before the mind, that noble, romantic vision that is experienced through fascination, humility and bliss flowing from the heart. This is our great success, if we get it. The result of human progress should be precisely the achievement of such satisfaction. This is what we have brains for, to ask questions that lead to God, however. The response to human life is therefore to seek. This is not so difficult again. Let's pay attention. Do people seek it? No. Despite the fact that they know of the inevitable death awaiting them. And in parallel next to nothing happens, and people still do not undertake any mobilization of the mind to do something about this death, to do something about this slipping life. Almost no one wants to consciously enroll in the course leading to the solution of the riddle of life. Jesus suggested, "Seek and you will find." In search of the Spirit, too much calmness at the beginning of the road does not pay off. You need to get nervous and pitch elbows on various libraries of knowledge. And then you will be relieved, and the degree of power will even out. In the first place will emerge that which is heaven, a heart thinking with love. And instead of a scientist you become love itself for all. He who aspires to the divine nature binds himself to all beauty. He can't stay alone with it, because he would go crazy, so he brags about it before the supreme beauty, and desires union. A man of progress needs some substance. The mystic does not need it at all. However, as long as he lives in the body, he needs to eat and drink, etc. Sometimes he doesn't do that either, or even sleep. Mystics can do everything like Jesus. And sin for them does not exist, only the good itself. Even in sorrows they see heaven. Interesting way. A mystic can be anyone, no matter what he does or who he is. He can even be a drunkard or a prostitute, a drug addict. What matters is what he desires most deeply. And didn't Jesus say wise words? Publicans and harlots enter before you into the kingdom of heaven. These words should be followed by a red light for us not to judge others. Everything is permitted. There is only one thing that should not be done, knowingly harming. And therein lies the sweet secret of love. Is it possible to love with thoughts? Of course. First of all, one loves with thoughts. Thoughts are the same as feelings. One without the other cannot exist. Only then does the whole noble drink of the gods, thought and feeling, flow into the body, well, and do what it wants with it. It directs it, moves it here and there. It stimulates the senses to activity and tries to take pleasure from them. Cognitive thoughts, travel thoughts, give the most happiness, because the feeling accompanying them, begins to play with the beauty and art of love. Such is the fate of thoughts, feelings. This is their purpose, to enliven everything and bring it into bloom. However we understand it. In heaven one travels, this here and that there, for love and knowledge. Padre Pio's words. The key to development is to find deeper than common motivations, and to find in own heart the dreams, the desires that would lead to material and spiritual goals. And that means finding universal love, which is ultimately a personal goal and beyond the natural, that is, beyond biology. Biology drowns us in a hell of hopelessness, but few people understand this. This is the perception system, manipulated to the bottom. Biology is not our goal. She runs away from us every day, like crazy. This is worth noting. Peace is not easily attainable, because it flows from knowing ourselves, from understanding who we are and our purpose on earth. The verve of body and soul, inner contentment, beauty and wealth also, but also poverty, humiliation, are this path to knowledge. After opening the mind-heart to all the beauty of life, something like a beautiful, fragrant flower arises, the desire for impeccability in everything. Then peace actually transforms into blissful feeling and contentment. When individuals work on this, Earth's civilizations will live joyfully with great hope and peace. But still, they must all die here. May everyone already live here for the last time. Padre Pio's words. But this is difficult, because the filth of the world floods us. Freedom and happiness, these are the natural goals of the universe. But some, high up in the hierarchy, in the galaxies and on our planet, deliberately give up such goals. All those who provide the world with this obscure potential are wily and irresponsible, despite having the power of power, luxury and influence. International ideological political phenomena in their concepts and social scientific theories, inspired by businessmen, and blinded politicians, artists, do not have for a penny such pursuit of freedom and happiness, which we actually want. For their goal, the idea of beauty, is not true virtue and true beauty, noble pleasure and delight, but appearances that have no idea of eternal health and stability in life. The materialism and liberalism they profess are the underlings of an undeveloped spiritual mind. Someday they will change this, but probably in their next biological life, when after death they will see more of the truth about their origins. As they comprehend with their grey cells who caused freedom and happiness, then they will detach their consciousness from the stickiness of the cosmos. They will understand what is needed. Phenomena of the world's science spark the fire of impressions, contradictory views and discoveries. They mainly stimulate the unbridled development of the human ego. Science and discoveries cannot be a god to us. This state of affairs in effect leads people instead of to peace, it leads to anxiety. The potential of science is used to destroy, to poison people with chemicals, and to expand war technologies. There is much more to this than the needs for peace and comfort. And innovative, genuinely creative and noble, pro-environmental technologies, are pushed to the sidelines. This is a deliberate failure to tell people, societies, civilizations, all the open truth that is available on our terms. In a word, the lack of a scientific heart on hand, makes us victims of the system. No one has yet, through dishonest promises and manipulations, experienced solace and peace of heart. It seems that something to modern progress, we are still missing. In this world everything breaks down. Padre Pio's words. In these bad conditions, it is necessary to work to make the truth known and loved. While respecting the individuality of each person separately, it is necessary to strive for the universal unity of peoples and societies of each state. My own happiness and security depends on the happiness and security of other inhabitants of the earth. This should be the direction of thought and action. This is the ideal. All my decisions must be sincere, and therefore positive, not to harm other societies and people. No mutual racial and cultural prejudice. All people are brothers and sisters and should work for the common good, regardless of skin color or religion. In order to achieve full peace, secular ideology, religious ideology, but also philosophical and scientific ideology must be excluded. Nothing in this world is or has ever been a god. Respect for God in gentleness of heart and thought. This is how it is necessary to proclaim own views, beliefs, faiths, so that everyone can maintain freedom of choice and not have to suffer because of it. There is still a long way to go. The full ideas of Jesus are not strictly religious ideas. God for Jesus was what bread was, normal. In fact, you don't have to be a religious or seeker atheist to know this and live it. It is even possible to never talk about God, but have Him in your heart. Many atheists are closer to Him than those identifying themselves as believers. Padre Pio's words. Since everything is fluid and changing, even the Earth's gravitational pull fluctuates, and even more so beliefs and opinions, therefore one cannot base own thinking and actions on a rigid concept. Hermeticism in all respects should be replaced by the open poetry of love. What should count is heart, sincerity, goodness and the duty of tolerance of all towards all. And this already means a universal, global system of love, the words of Padre Pio. We should arrive at such a system in economics where everyone is respected equally fairly. One condition, all nations, cultures and states should be persuaded of such a way to unity, while leaving them with free autonomy and eternal need for otherness. Except for love, of course. She for all should mean the same thing. First of all, gentleness and not hurting anyone under any circumstances. The duty to love own neighbor as oneself should be enshrined in every state constitution. Then we will no longer escape the true pleasure of life, in peace and harmony. In music, racial unity has already been achieved. It doesn't matter who plays and sings, what matters to us is that it's nice. And no one here resents what kind of religion or skin color someone is. This needs to be transferred to love and it will get better and better. You don't even need to read much to get to the point. The basic senses don't need literature to feel pleasure such as taste, smell, touch, or vision. The soul leads on its own, you just need to peel back the flaps. And then you can chase blindly, and it will still come out right. Despite the stumbling blocks. With a sincere heart, anything is possible. In life you have to be a little divinely crazy. Padre Pio's words. Live like in paradise. Because the cosmos is a paradise, a little unsuccessful, but a paradise along the lines of the real paradise. What is there to be sad about? It is necessary to appreciate it even more and laugh a lot. To be aware of what corner of life we are on and why. And the smile of joy of the spirit will overcome transience, first the concept of atheistic reason, material, pessimistic perceptions, and in the end it will overcome and the body. We will be connected to our original, immortal body. We already possess the immortal body now, during this life. But it is hidden. It will become a reward and we will be able to use it, in secret from others, already in this paradise, for love, understanding and forgiveness. The physical body is a temporary shell of the soul. Padre Pio's words. We should humble ourselves for the fact that for millions of years we have done a lot of harm to each other on different planets, in different galaxies. This happened after we left heaven. But we already know that we must return there at all costs. And it doesn't matter who is who, whether an atheist or a believer, whether someone full of virtues or vices themselves. All the angels, that is us, must return there. And we will return. It takes a long time, billions of years. But it is possible to return, and in this one, our lifetime. You just need to understand the cause of evil, calm down and love everything and everyone. God does not require much to save. He is very patient, tolerant. He is the best parent. Padre Pio's words. We have lived through a lot, experienced a lot of suffering. And God will never hit us, as we often do. He invites us to his eternal ball, for free. We just want to go there, to be interested in this ball for free. Is there a guy who wouldn't want that? I doubt it. A freebie always attracts. Let us enjoy the goodness and abundance of God. He himself invites us to it. Yes, it's hard to get heaven on earth. Unattainable in fact. Almost the whole world is against happiness, although everyone wants it. Ignorance and knowledge, as a practical mechanism of unkindness, destroys happiness. But so does nature. Why is this the case? Is it possible to do something here to reverse this trend? A little something can be done for civilization. But here such a system. There are no ideals and there will not be. Padre Pio's words. So not much will be done. Even the programmed Mother Earth takes care to bury us all. So not much from a material point of view can be done. On the other hand, the most important thing is the personal development of consciousness. The soul is immortal. Thoughts are immortal. Everything must be done so that consciousness does not have to be born under such harsh conditions. Ideally, it should move after life here to the world of ideal fairy tales, to function on the principles of eternity, rotating among the heavenly groves of comfort, which are permanent, wonderful and safe. On earth we will never achieve this. But in the soul, we already have symptoms of it every day. So it's worth longing for, and at least a little of this paradise and here, to give to others. You can, without fear. The soft structure of training attitudes to know the absolute, requires guiding and gentle renunciations. From the point of view of material happiness they are not so necessary, but if one wants to focus on own soul, to know it more intimately, more attention is needed. This attention is extremely sweet, but sometimes it forces one to strain. Padre Pio's words. To protect ourselves from the colonialism of tactlessness and insensitivity, lack of culture, a minimum effort of getting to know ourselves is needed. And this is already very much and brings us closer to the Absolute. It brings the believer closer, as well as the non-believer. The Absolute has no regard for persons. Therefore, let us learn to love everyone equally. The words of Padre Pio. If we desire to be more like him, the non-transparent walls of our body do not want to show us the soul. Only analysis, faith and trust in happiness, are able to overcome them.